Buckle up for an amazing journey today with Rich McEvoy from Fanshawe College. He has had an unconventional career path in asset management. Rich's work has taken him from hospitals in Newfoundland to a restaurant chain in Florida to even a brewery in Nova Scotia before he found his way to higher education. Eventually, a nudge from his wife led him to the college sector, where he pioneered a unique role centered on facility asset data and information systems. Over the last 13 years at Fanshawe College, Rich has shown how a love of data can transform the way a campus is managed. His story proves that technical skills are transferable and that being willing to pivot can open up incredible opportunities. In this episode, Rich shares how he uses technology to keep facilities running, why good data is a game changer, and how he's tackling today's biggest campus infrastructure challenges. Get ready to be inspired by Rich's adventurous path and fresh take on asset management. Good morning, Rich. Thanks for making the drive in to come visit with us today and share a little bit about your asset management story. Just for our audience, Rich and I have known each other since about 2017, I guess, when we started doing work for the Ontario college sector, and so have had a chance to get to know Rich, his team, as well as a lot of the things that he's doing at Fanshawe College, which I think will provide a lot of value for our listeners. So, Rich, one of the things I like to start with is I'm always fascinated by people's journeys. How did you get from where you were to where you are? And so if you can tell us a little bit about how you ended up at Fanshawe College doing the job that you're doing now.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me. We had a brief chat about this not long ago, and it is probably common that there's not many people that start their journey in facilities,
Right.
and all the way through. It doesn't happen very often, and I'm certainly one of those people. Mine really started in university. I went to university and got a degree in engineering operations research and industrial engineering. And that was in New York. So when it came time to look for work, it was not easy to find something in the early 90s. So I ended up going to Newfoundland, of all places. So I'm the guy that went to Newfoundland for work. That would be me. I ended up working healthcare for a number of years, about 5 years there. And again, the skills that I brought from my degree into that role was really about systems and information. And that's kind of a common theme that I've had throughout my career. So I spent 5 years I thought I'd be there for a year. It turned out to be 5 years. It was a wonderful experience. My dad's family's from there, so it gave me a tremendous opportunity to meet my relatives that I hadn't really met over the years growing up. So it was a very enriching experience. And then I made this random call to an old colleague from university, an old professor. He wasn't old, but it was from a previous life. And just checked in, and he said, next thing I know, about 2 or 3 months later, I got this note from his daughter, who I knew at university as well.
Right.
And he said, you're a hard guy to track down, but we want you to come to Florida to work for this new company for us. We think you'd be great for it. I'm like, you're crazy. What would I be doing there? Long story short, a few months later, we were living in Tampa, Florida. My wife and I packed and sold everything we own, and we were working for this restaurant consulting company for out of Tampa. So I was doing, again, a lot of systems work, report development and client support. And we were doing econometric modeling for revenue management solutions for large chain restaurants in the United States.
Okay.
So completely different from the work in the hospital from an environment perspective. But those that I'll call it data management skills carried over into this very different industry.
Right.
And it was an amazing experience. It really accelerated my career path. Anyway, we lived there for about 3 years, and then it kind of felt that was time for a change. We went back to Canada, ended up working in Halifax, and I worked for a conglomerate there. Again, changed industries again. It was back to healthcare, but a different environment. So I did some reporting and automation with that firm. And then they had a series of companies. Went over, worked for a software company for a little bit, did some more data analysis and reporting. And then another opportunity, a very bizarre opportunity, came up to work with Olin Breweries in Halifax. They were looking for some support to roll out a new ERP system. And needed some support with that. So next thing I know, I'm working on a contract for a beer company, a completely different industry, but again, using those same skill sets of moving information. So worked there for a couple of years, for a few months actually. Then a permanent role came up, which of course would be nice for the old stability of a young family when I started my family. But the new permanent role was in London. So that after 4 years living in Halifax, I have this opportunity, but it means going to London, which I'd never been to in my life. But anyway, we went for it. It was an opportunity and another great experience. So I was, again, the common theme being data process management, overseeing processes to support rolling out of this nationwide program. And again, as that role started to phase out, I recognized that there was, the light. It wasn't a permanent job, even though it was a permanent role. That position wasn't going to allow. I could see the writing on the wall.
Right.
So I put my hand up and said, look, there's something else I can do to keep this career going. Put your hand up for projects. Next thing I know, I'm doing these very high profile supply chain problems. So it brought me to the US. I did some supply chain stuff there, trying to, again, break down the processes, looking for opportunities to streamline. And that led me to the super high profile job in Europe. So I did the same thing and worked doing for companies, for InBev and, at the time. And that was a really neat experience. So I got to travel over to Europe a few times.
Nice.
So then that went on for probably about 4 years. And anyway, things didn't last there. There was another opportunity to actually go back to my original company in Tampa. So that I did that for a couple of years. And next thing I know, my wife hands me this job application for Fanshawe College.
Right.
And I'm like, what am I going to do in a college environment? I had no idea how she would have thought this would have been a match. And it was a facilities role, and it was a unique facilities role at the time. And so I put my name in the hat, and the next thing you know, I'm working at Fanshawe College, and that was 13 years ago this month.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's been a
Happy
very
anniversary.
unusual journey. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so it's been I've hopped around a lot, done a lot of different things, but it's that common thread of really understanding how information moves within a company, and how to leverage it to help people make decisions at the end of the day.
Right. Well, from Newfoundland to Tampa to Halifax to London, back to Tampa, back to London. I think the one thing seems to be data and using data, leveraging data, powering data, and I think from my perspective, your role at Fanshawe, your role in your team is not entirely unique, but not common in a lot of higher ed institutions. So can you tell us a little bit about Fanshawe itself, your campus, your portfolio, and then a little bit about kind of your role in your team and where your focus is? And I mean, I'm sure you see it as well with a lot of your peers. There's not a lot of the other colleges and universities have a Rich.
Right.
And so can you maybe just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was interesting because when I got hired, it was one of those, and I've heard this a lot in my career. It's one of those jobs you can make it what you want to make it, because it was unique. It was the first of its kind that we were aware of in the Ontario college system.
Right.
And so I was hired. I had two people that moved from another part of the team come work for me, and they were architectural technologists. So that's where it kind of all started. And so I was brought in as a manager of facilities information systems, which oversaw the software that was used to support the department, help out with some reporting, and then keep our drawings maintained. So the portfolio of drawings for our campus. And then over the years, it evolved into kind of, I think people started understanding the value of having somebody that could take, all these demands for reports and building information and all these things that you need to run a campus. And I think that's where my values started to percolate up, and people started realizing, hey, you know what, this is a much more efficient way to do this stuff as opposed to typical facilities managers that have to do it on the side of their desk. Right. Oh, and by the way, after you've done repairing that roof leak, we need you to get this report off to the ministry for whatever. Right. Like, oh yeah, I can't wait to get back to that. Where I actually love that stuff.
Right. Yeah.
So a little background on Fanshawe College, I guess. So it was established, I want to say, in the late 60s. We've grown to have about 2.8 million square feet of space that we oversee. We've got 4 regional campuses. We've got a downtown presence. We're main campus is in London, Ontario. We're going through a bit of a phase right now with our student population, but we were probably about 22,000 full-time students last year. Right. At our peak. That's, again, it's funny whenever you talk about data and stats, like defining what a student is, but that would be at our peak, a peak on campus at a given time. And yeah, like I said, it's been 13 years that I've been in this role at Fanshawe. And since I've been there in the college system, I'm involved with some associations among the colleges. And And I think there's been other colleges that have embraced this role and have started building roles like mine, because I see the benefits certainly when it comes to reporting. There's a lot of interaction with, getting reports to ministries, other things within the departments, board reports. And again, to have somebody that's a little more tuned into doing that, or at least a group that's tuned into doing that, it allows people to do the things that they're more focused in doing, like repairing roofs, leaking roofs.
Doing all the work that the data that you control and manage tells them that they should be doing, right?
Yeah, that's exactly.
Rich, as I said earlier, we met back in 2017 through your participation in the Van Osif Manawo Kappa Facility Condition Assessment Program Steering Committee. So for this next question, would love for you to answer it from the Fanshawe College perspective, as well as from the broader higher education sector, Ontario College sector. But what are right now, where we sit today, what do you see as the top 3 facility infrastructure asset management challenges that face Fanshawe College and the Ontario College sector? And it could be 6 if you have 3 and 3 if they're different. And also kind of the strategies or the approaches that you are taking to address and overcome those challenges.
Yeah, it's an interesting time, particularly, but the first one obviously has to be doing more with less. So it's having the funding that's required to keep your campus looking great all the time.
Right.
We've got a lot of pride in our campus. Our staff is very proud at the work they do to keep it beautiful. And we hear about that when the students come to visit during our open house, how it sways a lot of just to see how well it's maintained and taken care of. So we want to be in a position where we have the funding to keep that going. It's not just the green grass. It's got to be making sure that the roofs are watertight and the heat and cooling systems are working. So it's making sure that we have enough money set aside to take care of those things that are very big lists. Once you realize it's an underappreciated thing.
Right.
So that's one of the challenges I'll speak to in a second. But certainly making a case for the funding that's required to get what you need to do. The thing that we're doing to address that is going back to data, is having our plan ready to go and being able to look out. But the bigger than that is being able to adjust through the realities of what happens during the course of a year. So when we start off, things change. Things are changing this morning as I was driving in. You'll set out, we used to do 3-year or 5-year plans. Then the years 4 and 5 were kind of pointless. So it would be very loose, 3 and 4 and 5.
Yep.
We're really focusing on 1 to 3 year plans.
Nice.
But within those years, you're constantly adjusting those priorities. There's always an ebb and flow to just the realities of day to day. There's projects that come and go that you might not have known in the beginning. So having that list and being able to communicate it quickly to leaders and decision makers, I think it gives us a lot of credibility in the college. And I think those in the college system that have that, I think, are getting a lot of more support from their boards when it comes to, hey, we get a grant that we have to work with, and some only get the grant, but if we can sell our story to our board and our senior team, they recognize, oh, you know what? Yeah, there is value in giving you a little extra money, because if we don't, then our students are going to be suffering it in the long term. So I think getting that message out is certainly one of our strategies. Excellent. And one that we promote. The other one is, I think it's not easy. It's not a often visible thing. So it's getting that communication out to people. So, hey, what is deferred maintenance or deferred capital renewal? And
thank you.
Oh yes, no, I am definitely waving that flag for it, Bill. It does, and we're bringing a lot of people under. It carries more weight when people recognize that it's deferred capital, and it's not just maintenance. Maintenance is maintenance, and it's not clearing a toilet. It's maintaining the integrity of your building. And I think getting those discussions with more and more people, and having that story ready to tell, is definitely helping. So we've been very aggressive over the years, that we've kind of embraced this whole process, that we are meeting every week with our operations team to go through what's changed since last week, what's the updates on what's been occurring, what do we need to look forward to. We meet monthly with a broader group, which involves finance and other parts of the college. We've got monthly steering committee meetings, so we get perspectives from the entire college system, and hey, what's working, what's not working, how are we progressing with some of our initiatives. So a big thing there is about communications.
Excellent.
And the last thing that kind of ties it all together is advocacy. Like, why are we doing this? And if we don't keep our pressure on getting that funding, I use your phrase, well, we want to make things less worse.
Yeah.
Like we've got a monumental amount of work that needs to be done to keep these buildings working efficiently as we want them to be. But you're constantly needing to fight for that money. And especially these days,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
We're in a very crunch time right now in the college system, as many know. So those dollars, we've had our dollars shrunk back quite significantly. So we're
Right.
still pushing, hey, we need those extra dollars. If anything frees up, we need to be aware. And that's probably another thing that one of our strategies too, and I think other colleges have embraced it, is having those shovel-ready projects
Yeah.
ready to go,
Yeah.
right? So we'll do our study this year, hoping to do it next year. But if something happens, we still have that study ready, or that project ready to go,
Yeah.
shovel-ready project ready to go. Because another thing that's occurred at times is money will appear, whether it be a grant or there's a surplus that we didn't expect. Hey, now they're coming to us first. Hey, we know you guys got some plans ready to go. We need to spend this in a hurry. Can you dust off one of those ones that you're sitting in your back pocket? And so we'll get some of that bonus. I'll call it bonus money from time to time.
Yeah.
But I think it's because of those things I talked about earlier, being able to, get the ear of those decision makers. They understand and respect the information we're sharing with them. And we have a good communication protocol and governance that allows us to have some credibility in the college.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, and I think you mentioned kind of that 1 to 3 year, used to do 5. That's I think is what I see the one of the biggest benefits for organizations and clients that go from we do a 1-year plan to we do a multi-year plan is you have that list, again, it doesn't happen always, but sometimes money does become available, right? Yeah. And if you're caught flat-footed, somebody else who's got a project ready to go is going to get their bigger share of that money, or they might get your money.
Right.
And so I think that's a really important point for our listeners is if you are just doing a 1-year plan today, you want to try to look at going to that. Again, I think you're right. 3 is what we call the sweet spot too. It sounds like that's where you landed as well. Mm-hmm. But it gives you so much more flexibility. And politically, it's also nice to say if somebody doesn't get their project in the first year, at least you can point out to them, hey, look, you're actually in year 2. We haven't forgotten about you. It's just we've prioritized.
Right.
So just a couple of follow-up questions on what you said, Rich, is so you mentioned keeping your campus beautiful, and you also mentioned keeping the campus running. So what type of strategies have you guys used to balance those two things? Because oftentimes they're almost counterbalanced, right? Is that the beautification, the aesthetics versus the function? Can you talk a little bit about that?
One of the things that I know we take, again, a lot of pride in is engaging our students. So our horticulture program does miraculous work on our campuses. And it really is, especially in this time of year in the springtime, is everything's starting to go into bloom. So there's a great relationship with that program that really we leverage.
So that's students helping beautify the campus. Oh, that's cool. That's awesome.
So that's awesome. Again, leveraging these resources that are available to people who are very eager, and then they get to see the fruits of their results.
Plus, they get some real world experience that they can showcase. Right? That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's one strategy that's really benefited us, and I'm not sure how many others do that. I'm sure others do it as well, but that's something we've definitely gotten a lot of bang for our buck for, I guess, with getting that establishing and maintaining that relationship. As far as the other balancing components, the thing that we have a good relationship with our capital planning group, our project managers and coordinators, that when there is projects to come, that's part of that weekly and monthly cycle we go through, is, hey, what's coming down the pipeline? How can we integrate so that we can work together on things? So I think that's where some of those things come together as well. So you don't want to do them in isolation, because eventually, if you do, something's going to overrun the other, right?
Absolutely.
You replace a roof and then, oh yeah, by the way, we got to tear that up because we're going to do so. So you're duplicating the work. So that's one of the motivators to keeping those conversations going. So we've done a lot of infrastructure work in the last year and a half. So again, as we're putting that stuff back together, well, maybe we'll talk to the horticulture guys. Hey, can you guys help, fill in that? We've got this big black area that's been turned up.
Right.
What a great opportunity to plant some trees.
Yeah.
So we've got this one wonderful new, it was just past one of our entrances, and now we're going to have a whole whack of new trees that have been planted, and awesome. In another year or so, they're going to really help beautify the campus. So it's that synergy, I think, that's having that communication, getting our, making sure we're not competing against those things. We're
Right.
trying to integrate those things
Nice.
instead where we can. So that seems to be working, and we'll keep going that way.
Cool. Well, that response and some of the stuff you said earlier, I wanted to ask about silos, because it sounds like you're meeting, all the different departments, you're meeting with them on a regular basis. A lot of organizations struggle with silos, right? Department X doesn't like to talk to Department Y. They're in competition. It seems like that doesn't exist at Fanshawe. So did that used to, like, you've been there a long time, did it used to exist and
Yeah.
you've broken it down, or is that something Fanshaw's just been lucky to never have that?
I think we've been lucky, and we're going through an interesting phase right now. We've been lucky because I think our staffing's been very stable over the last
Right.
many years that I've been there.
Right.
And
That is very lucky.
That's changing now. We've got some people that are moving out of the system, and so now we got to train the new people.
Right.
So, and again, ever since the pandemic, that's caused some natural silos that we've
Right.
been trying to avoid, and
Okay.
and it's always a challenge.
Of
It
course,
really
yeah.
is always a challenge. But I think by having, I talked about it earlier, the governance model where you do have a regular recurring meeting with the people, you're inviting those people,
Right.
so that they can at least have a say, right? So, and it's not just it's space planning. It's a lot of other elements of facilities in particular, but we're always struggling to get more involved in broader things as well, because
Right.
I think that's something you hear a lot of conversations with our peers is facilities isn't at the table all the time,
Right.
And it helps. We're biased, of course, but it helps when we have that informed decision from a facilities perspective, because hey, it impacts most areas of the campus when you're making those decisions. So having facilities voice at the decision-making table, I think, helps in
Yeah.
the long run. And it goes back to breaking down those silos.
Yeah.
And by getting that credibility, people are more apt to participate in those discussions.
Right.
So, oh yeah, those guys actually do have something valuable to say about this, or a good perspective that we didn't really think of those things.
Right.
So when you can catch that at the beginning, it saves certainly a lot of grief in the future.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I like I say, I know a lot of organizations that's the number one issue that's stopping them from doing more with less or making better decisions. And it's interesting that you're coming from a place where you don't have them, but you're having to fight from them to be built, as opposed to where you have them and you're trying to tear them down. Different challenges, but similar at the same time.
Yeah, and again, it's like the last 6 months, especially. There's been a lot of change. I'm sure most colleges are going through this right now as well.
Right.
And again, we've had a pretty good smooth road. Now it's very bumpy.
Right.
But how do we smoothen it back out based on how we've done things, recognizing that we still need to do things a little differently, right?
Yeah.
We're not perfect.
Yeah.
Some of these new people bring in these very refreshing perspectives that, hey, you know what? Maybe we should take a look at how we do things, and
Right.
and dust some things off and revisit some of the way we do things to make them better.
Right.
And by doing that, bringing in other entities that may have gone a little quiet. They might be invited to some of these reviews. They haven't been showing up lately.
Right.
This kind of gives us that renewal to, hey, maybe we better resume that conversation. We do meet on a regular basis. Let's get back
Nice.
to meeting again.
Nice. So you actually, it was a perfect segue. So you sort of talked about kind of the future and going forward and bringing in new ideas. So to kind of turn from where we are today to the future, what do you think facility and infrastructure asset management is going to look like in the future? What's going to be the same? What's going to be different? Where do you think the industry is going?
I think I'm going to come at it from a biased perspective, because to me, it's all about data
Right.
and integrity and telling a story, using that information to tell a story. And I think we've always had a lot of data to wade through and compile so that
Right.
we can be informed. And one of the challenges is keeping that data current, because now we've got all these different things coming at us.
Yep.
And one of the lessons we've learned early on is detail is great until you have to maintain it.
Of course. Yeah.
So you have to find that sweet spot that you mentioned earlier. So the sweet spot is, all right, at what point do we just say, you know what, we got to let that detail go, because it's the bigger stuff that we really need to deal with.
Right.
And so I think one of the key areas this is going to go, I think people are becoming more adept at dealing with their data and their portfolios and all the information that surrounds it. The supporting systems now need to talk to each other a little more, so it's less cumbersome to update it and to retrieve stuff from it.
Right.
And the area that we're choosing to go, and I've been a big fan of this for years, and we're finally getting some traction, and that's to build a nice interface, like a mapping interface. So I'm a big fan now of tools like ArcGIS, and we're working to try and, my dream is to have an interface that anybody could go to, that you think of your Google Map.
Yep.
Everybody, you don't need instructions on how to work Google Map.
Yep.
I would love to see a campus map that says, I need to know something about what's in this building.
Yep.
And it might be your work orders, it might be your heating, your energy use, your occupancy,
Right.
all those different things. And digital twin is a term that's come up a lot. I think where we need to go is we need to bring all this data consolidated so that it's easy to digest, but it's also easy to update.
Right.
So I think that's the part of the conversation that we might be missing is, okay, I've got all these things, I need to feed it, and I
Yep.
need to feed it regularly with competent people that have checks and balances. But if it's difficult, it's going to go away.
Yep.
So we've been there where we've documented an audit, every little tiny detail, and a month later it's obsolete because something's changed. So then, of course, if something becomes obsolete, then the whole data set's compromised, right? There's some people that think that way, unfortunately. So, but it's the reality in a lot of cases. So to me, it's building a tool, I'll call it, that makes that interpretation and manipulation of your information, your building information, your campus information, easily digestible and usable, so that you can continue to tell those good stories, to keep getting that money flowing, to support all the efforts that you're trying to make to keep those campuses in great shape.
Right. Excellent. Any other ideas about the future? What about AI? What are you guys doing?
It's funny. I made a note. I said, AI, it's going to come up.
Yeah.
We'll be prepared to chat about it.
Everybody's talking about it.
It's funny because you feel like you don't know what's going on. Like you feel like, I wish I had an application to use, because it sounds like I should know stuff. And then you get in a room, you start talking to people. Like, have you used this? Yeah, I've used it to do this. And they're fascinating things that people are using it for.
Yep.
And easily translatable to your work.
Yep.
Like, I planned my 50th wedding or my 50th birthday party or whatever with my friends and all these great ideas. I says, well, could you use that same principle to plan a conference or to plan a retreat for your group? So all those little things that you can use. So we're experimenting with it a little bit. We don't have anybody dedicated to looking at it right now, but we're kind of keeping an open mind, because again, that's the one nice thing about my group is we're very I don't know if I'd say bleeding edge. We're innovative relative to
again, as an outsider looking in, that's definitely you definitely own that title. For sure.
We're the early adopters for sure. We take our lumps to test the waters on some things. But you know what? I've got a resilient team that tolerates me sometimes, but they do amazing work when you give them a challenge and looking at ways we can use some newer tools differently. And AI is one of those things. We haven't really scratched the surface too much yet, but we're certainly willing to. We're certainly looking at areas where maybe this stuff, if there's a way that we can be more efficient through this stuff. I know we have one, I think it got paused, but we were looking at actually doing some work on one of our downtown buildings. I think we were looking at possibly putting in some sensors to help do some predictive maintenance and I want to say some of our ductwork downtown. I'm not sure, but anyway, there was an AI element to that. But we were all anxious to sort of see what this is going to look like. So I know we've been working with some of our contractors to say, hey, this is something we'd like to try.
Right.
So that's the nice thing about, you get a good group of people to work with that are willing to take on these innovative challenges, and a good support group that'll help see it through. So anyway, we hope that one gets back in line, because it is pretty exciting. And there's certainly, like I said, when you start having those conversations with your peers and you don't think you've done that much, well, actually we have done a little bit. We are getting ourselves familiar just by osmosis, I guess you could say. Right.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing how far things have come in the last 6 months or so, right? Like when ChatGPT came on the scene, and with all due respect to the marketing world, it was just all about marketing, right? How do you do better sales? How do you do better emails? How do you do this or that? And that's what it was like. That's what it did best. But I've sort of stayed close to it, and just the movement forward, the innovation, the ability for it to do things. It's come a lot further, a lot faster than I thought it was going to.
Right.
And so I think, just keeping your eye on it and looking for those opportunities, I think is smart, because, because things are happening so quickly, there are going to be some folks left behind. So kind of keeping your eye to your ear to the ground, or keeping your eye on it, I think is really interesting. Anything else, Rich, for our audience of folks just like you from across,
Yeah.
North America and across different sectors that you'd like to share?
Yeah, and it's kind of a building off that. The last comment is the one of the things that's really been enriching about my role is participating in associations. So we've got a really strong um, college association for facilities, OCAPA, that you
Hmm.
referenced. And one of the subcommittees that I'm on, we were talking about AI a couple weeks ago and recognizing that that's something that we could have maybe foster a conversation on a
Yeah,
broader scale. Kind of like this, just tell your story. How are
yeah,
you
yeah,
guys using AI? And
yeah,
could somebody else benefit from that? And again, like I said before, it might be what you might think a frivolous thing that could be applied to something. It'll trigger something. And if that makes you more efficient and more um, capable, then that's the conversations that we want to have. So that's something I would share, is that, just putting yourself out there. Don't, get out of your office and out of your campus if you have an opportunity, and
yeah,
interact with some of your other peers, because it's funny, we meet bi-monthly, I guess, and we joke that sometimes just airing out our challenges is therapeutic,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because you're talking to other people that are dealing with very similar challenges, day-to-day challenges,
yeah.
and it's not limited to regions. It's, you go to these other broader conferences, it's
Mhm.
similar conversations, and if someone solved that problem, it's conversation that might
Yeah.
might save you a lot of headaches. So that would be one of my things, is don't be afraid to reach out and join associations that get you help build that network, because those networks are where, the classic napkin solutions,
Yeah.
right? That is real. It's very real, and been very rewarding since I've been part of Fanshawe.
Absolutely. Well, and I mean, yeah, we're like the higher ed sector in North America is so lucky to have an organization like APA, with the
Hmm.
national, the regional, and the local chapters like
Right.
OCAPA for Ontario colleges. And I think you're absolutely right. It's hey, I've got a problem. Who's already solved it, so I don't have to step on the same
Yeah,
landmine that you stepped on
absolutely.
previously, right? So that's great. That's great advice. Rich, thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully, everybody can take away some ideas and thoughts from Rich's experience. And thanks so much. And we'll see you next time on the Telling Your Asset Management Story. What a ride. Rich's story is a true testament to embracing change and thinking outside the box. He showed us that an asset management career can zigzag through industries, and that every twist can add a new arrow to your quiver. One big takeaway is how transferable skills, like Rich's knack for data and systems, can be a superpower in managing facilities. He took tools from restaurants and breweries and used them to make a college run smarter. Rich also reminded us that sometimes you have to invent the job you want. If it doesn't exist, create it. His pioneering role at Fanshawe proves that being proactive and innovative can benefit an entire organization. We're grateful for Rich for sharing his one-of-a-kind journey and insights. And thank you for listening. We hope Rich's experience inspires you to find new ideas in unexpected places. Until next time, keep celebrating the innovators in infrastructure.